So we had some people who were calling the program yesterday, and they think we spend way too much time talking about Donald Trump. On the other hand, I think that people do realize if I used to get into these arguments with liberals years ago at other stations where I was working, and they would call and say, we need to have an intelligent discussion on the issues. All right, well, that's called Face the Nation or Meet the Press, and the ratings are abysmal for those programs. My job is to sell soap. Look, can I be any more plain about that? That's what we do in talk radio. I do believe in what I'm talking about, but the notion is to bring the largest amount of people into the tent, because it costs money to turn all the lights on here and turn the transmitter on here and turn the air conditioning on in summer and the heat in winter. And so what we have to do is we have to get the largest number of ears listening to a program. And then when you get the largest number of ears listening to a program, then you can sell them some products. And that helps pay the bills here. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this business. We would be in an unemployment line somewhere. And Donald Trump right now, when it comes down to it, let's be honest, Donald Trump, he gets reaction. He got reaction yesterday from people who were complaining about him on the program. Understood. But the fact of the matter is, the reason he's getting all of this attention is because he's saying things that are resonating with at least a large group of the American public. And for that reason, as they say in the newspaper business, this is a story that has legs. And this is one that's going to be around for a while, unless he totally implodes during this debate tomorrow night. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. And, of course, 66 on our way to, well, I don't know if it's going to be quite as warm today. Yesterday looked like rain late in the afternoon. Got really dark at my house, and then all of a sudden, within an hour, it was gone. No rain. And a lot of the forecasts lately, we've added rain late, and then the next day nothing happens other than a few clouds. But I don't think we're going to be quite as toasty the next few days as we were the last couple of days. I have to note, I went out yesterday to the Twin Falls County Fairgrounds, and they served us a chicken luncheon that was just with this seasoned chicken that just was mouth-watering. And it wasn't dry, and And I think that what we should note here is that that we're going to have a big event coming up sometime soon, and that's going to be the fair coming up just around Labor Day-ish. And some of the great things they told us about, they will have a big roller coaster that has not been there in the past, and they are going to have the alligators come back. So those were some of the things we got to hear about out there yesterday, and I'd like to thank them for the really great luncheon. I think I may have a guest who's hovering around the door, but I see sometimes it's somewhat of a coin flip as to see who we're going to have coming through the door on the way into our studios. But if I could, just very quickly, I want to share with you quickly, Donald Trump was appearing on the O'Reilly Factor last night, and he was asked if he is going to be a little bit nervous about this debate.
Are you apprehensive? Are you staying up at night and probably, I know you don't sleep much at all, but are you a little apprehensive?
I would think so. I mean, you don't know what's going to come at you. You don't know where these other people are going to come. You don't know whether or not the three folks that are asking the questions, I mean, they're going to try and trick you up, which is unfortunate because all of that has nothing to do with being a great president. But I'm doing it because it's something you have to do. And again, I've never debated. My whole life has been a debate, but I've never debated before. These politicians, all they do is debate.
You're not going to have any trouble with that. You're a little quick. You'll have answers, so. And I know you will. But you know what? I think you're surprised at your poll numbers. I think you're surprised that you're the front runner right now, and all eyes are on you in this debate. I think that's taken you aback.
Well, the poll numbers are not only good, I mean, they're phenomenal. We just got numbers from South Carolina, which are through the roof, Iowa, New Hampshire, not only the national numbers. So I'm very honored by it. But what it really shows is that people are tired of incompetence. They don't want incompetent politicians running our country.
What they are tired of is just simply the ways of Washington. And I know there are people out there who say Trump is not a true conservative. He's not even a true Republican. Although I think Republicans in Washington, I'm not saying here in Idaho. I got to be honest with you. Having lived in the East for the first 52 years of my life, and I even had to live in the People's Republic of Vermont for a while, having lived in that part of the country, there are no true Republicans along the East Coast. It doesn't happen. They're basically all, it's a label, but they're all really part of the Democrat, extension. West of the Mississippi River, and especially in the Rocky Mountains, even though you may not always agree with some of your elected Republican politicians, believe me, they are a darn sight better, because I have had to deal with the others. I think the last true Republican I dealt with in a state, in one of those liberal East Coast states, was probably Al D'Amato, who, by the way, like Donald Trump, just shot from the hip and said whatever came to the top of his head. And it got him in trouble, and unfortunately it led to his demise, and he was replaced by Chuck Schumer in the U.S. Senate. Isn't that a sad tale? 912, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. And, of course, you can reach our program this morning at 736-0300, 736-0300. There is a writer by the name of Chris Saliza at the Washington Post, and he has a column that's catching a lot of attention. This was posted yesterday at the Post website just before noon. Get this. The headline is, "Boy, was I wrong about Donald Trump. Here's why." And he goes on to say that some months ago he was writing, "You cannot and do not win anything when your numbers look like Trump's. I can't say it any more clearly than that. There's nothing you can say or do, not that Trump would ever even consider going on an image rehabilitation tour, to change how people feel about you. Republicans know Trump, and they really, really don't like him." That's what this guy wrote a couple of months ago about Donald Trump. And he said, once your image is hardened among the electorate, you don't really have any chance of changing anything. He said, well, you know what? He admits that we here in Washington, inside the Beltway, talking in our echo chamber inside our bubble, apparently don't understand the American people as well as we thought we did. Gee willikers, do you think so? How about Mitch McConnell? Does he understand the anger in his own party among the rank and file about Planned Parenthood? Of course not. Does John Boehner? Of course not. And they sure as heck don't understand it in the media, where they all stand around and pat each other on the back and say, "Oh, did wonderful work, wonderful work. Oh, you're wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Yes, you're wonderful too. Yes, let me pat you on the back." And that's what you have. He goes on to say, why did I miss Trump's appeal so badly? Simply put, he says, I never ever, and he capitalizes never ever, have seen a reversal in how people perceive a candidate who is as well known as Trump, much less a reversal in such a short period of time. I base my conclusion that Trump would never be a relevant player in the primary fight on the ideas that, one, people know you, and two, they don't like you, and they won't change those realities. So there you have it. A member of the staff at Pravda on the Potomac saying, hey, we don't know what we're talking about. Isn't that a wonderful thing? 914. You don't get that very often in media. National Journal has a piece today by a reporter who's angry that he says he can't get close to Trump and question him. I must interrogate him so that I may embarrass him. And he has a list of questions he'd like to ask Trump. I've got this one. It says, your slogan is Make America Great Again. What era do you think was the greatest in American history? That is a trick question. You know why? Because if Trump says, well, I loved growing up in the 1950s, then the guy will say, oh, that was segregationist apartheid America. Although Trump, of course, did not grow up in any part of the country that was segregated. It just did not take place where he was living in New York. And if he says, well, I like the 1920s, they'll say, oh, that was just before the Great Depression. Capitalism was out of control, and it led to the Depression. That's awful. If he says, well, I like the era just before the 1920s. Oh, you want to oppress women then? They couldn't vote. You realize these types of trick questions, this is how they try to play gotcha with politicians. Because in their eyes, America has never been good. We have a caller with us. You're on the air with Bill Colley on Top Story.
Well, I'm not for Trump, but Trump is doing something that everybody else should open their eyes about, being honest and everything else. This is what we've been talking about for a while, Bill. The silent majority are now speaking their minds by backing somebody that's saying certain things. And I say the word silent majority because we don't stand on soapboxes and praise heck and influence judges and everything else. We hope that the people are honest, and we hope that the people do follow the Constitution. And this is what's resonating. The other guys need to wake up.
Yeah, they all. There's a columnist by the name of Charles Hurt today at the Washington Times who says, Mr. Universe, Donald Trump takes on the 9 dwarfs. And it looks that way. I mean, it's That's why he's getting all the press coverage, because he's interesting. He's not a dullard.
But never mind the press coverage. That's why his numbers are good. Even the Hispanics are giving him good numbers, and he's blasting them. Oh, come on. If this isn't a wake-up call, we got this whole thing with the nuclear deal. The people are saying no, and our politicians are saying yes.
And
Who
again,
are they there for? Are they there for themselves, or are they there for us?
And thank you for the call. As I was saying yesterday with that nuclear deal, Trump has dealt with some of the worst gangsters in America. When he was building his casinos in Atlantic City, he was dealing with the Philadelphia mob, which controls that area. He was dealing with a cutthroat like Nicky Scarfo, who's now going to spend the rest of his life in prison. If he can deal with that, then he can deal with some mad mullah in Iran. 917, you're on the air. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. What's on your mind?
Yes, Trump is going to, they say that this debate is going to be, the ratings are going to be over the top for a Republican first debate. And what Trump is doing is he's drawing so much attention. And whether or not it be good or bad, there are, I hope, people out in this country sitting in their living rooms watching their TVs who actually stop and think for a minute and say, they start to contemplate, because not only does Trump get exposure, but he gives all the rest of them a chance to speak their mind too, because of the increased awareness. And so my point being is that maybe, like I say, there'll be more people that care, that decide to care. And so that in itself is a good thing. One more point quick and I'll hang up.
Sure.
How I was talking about how Obama has ran through America like Hitler through Poland, and he's just always on the offensive. Boise State Broncos, one of the things that they do when they can is they get up on you, and then they run the score up, and the other team is defeated and before the first half. And this is a typical thing if they can accomplish it. And that's what Obama, with this Clean Air Act and coal plants, and see, he's so far down the road, and we're still trying to talk about hell, think of all the things we've forgotten that he's done, and he's gotten away with all of them.
Well, and I'm going to get to that coal plant and that environmental stuff a little later in the program. I've got some thoughts on that, because you do have a few governors who say they will defy him. Again, they say they will defy him, and they haven't actually done anything yet to defy him. They just say they. See, this is why guys like Donald Trump resonate, because they're men of action. They're not just mealy-mouthed people who walk around and make you a promise and then don't keep it on a constant level. Hey, yesterday someone said they would rather have Cruz instead of Trump. Cruz praising Trump on TV last night. Maybe we'll get to that too as well when he was on the Kelly File. That's on the way. Bill Colley with you on Top Story. It's 9:20 and 67. Hey, I just got confirmation. I want to mention this quickly if I could. Tomorrow morning, we're going to be joined in the second hour of the program by Michael Cutler. You may recognize that name. He's done some work inside the government and outside. He is one of the preeminent experts in this country when it comes to some of the dangers we have with immigration, and that could be immigration coming from anywhere around the world, and that would even include Syria, for instance, and just some of the threats we face. And he says we're no safer now from a terrorist attack than we were on 9/11. So he'll be joining us tomorrow morning, tentatively right now, just after the 9 o'clock news, here on Top Story with Bill Colley on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Of course, 925, 68. And I do want to point out a couple of things about some fine sponsors that we have on this program. Some who've been with us for a very long time, and some who are relatively new. First of all, I'm not a liberal, so I'm a meat eater. My daughter told me years ago, she said, I'm going to become a vegetarian. And then we ended up going to one of these large chain steakhouses, and she went inside and all of a sudden forgot that she was a vegetarian. Funny how that works. Once you get a whiff of the odor from the steak sizzling and the like. We wanted to tell you about High Desert Meat Processing, where they process one animal at a time, and get this, What you bring in is what you get back. You don't get your neighbor's meat or the guy down the road, his meat, or somebody from the next town. What you bring in, you get back in return. Darren Van Horn, owner of High Desert Meat Processing in Twin Falls, Idaho, has over 30 years' experience in the meat business. Visit High Desert Meat Processing on Facebook. Read reviews of other customers. You can give High Desert Meat Processing a call for all of your wild game and domestic processing needs. High Desert Meat does in-house smoking. Nothing gets shipped out. And this is the tasty part. Jerky, pepperoni, summer sausage, kielbasa, breakfast sausage, steaks, Polish hot dogs, and more. So, yes, you'll be happy you dropped by there, especially when you get home and you throw some of that on the grill and it starts sizzling. 9:26 now, and of course, if you'd like to reach our program, you can reach me at 736-0300, 736-0300. Ted Cruz appearing last night on the Kelley File on Fox News. And the subject of the debate came up, and also his relationship with Donald Trump, which is actually a very good one.
A lot of people may not know that you were a debate champion at Princeton. And in addition to that, we're the Solicitor General down in Texas, where you argued for a living and you got pressed with hard questions by smart judges. So you've been at this rodeo before. How confident do you feel going into Thursday?
Well, Megan, I think the debate is going to go well. I certainly hope it will. And I think it's a continuation of a debate we've been having for a number of months, which is what is the right direction for the Republican Party? How do we win, and how do we turn the country around? You know, there are a lot of voices in Washington that argue every 4 years that we've got to run towards the mushy middle, that the way we win is by not really standing for much of anything. And every time we listen to those voices, we lose. Every time we run as Democrat light, we lose. I'm convinced 2016 is going to be an election very much like 1980, and that we're going to win by following Reagan's dictum of painting in bold colors and not pale pastels.
Did you strike some sort of a deal with Donald Trump? Because you came to New York, you met with him. Now, a lot of people believe you have some sort of a deal, either that you might team up in the debate or that you won't criticize him and he won't criticize you.
Oh, Donald and I have been friendly for a long time before he was a presidential candidate. I expect that we will remain friendly after he's a presidential candidate. And I commend Donald
for you didn't answer my question.
No, there was no deal.
There was no deal. On the other hand, I don't know that Cruz is going to be the nominee either. But can I say this? If not, I still think we're going to have a Republican president. Hillary Clinton is in serious meltdown. And without Hillary Clinton, her party has nothing. I like Jim Webb as a Democrat, but he's not going to win because the liberals in his party are going to block him. They will not vote for him because he's got a military background and he's tough as nails, and they don't like that approach. But could you imagine Ted Cruz as Secretary of State? You know, compare what he would do versus a John Kerry. 9:28, you're on the air with Bill Colley on Top Story. Welcome to News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com.
The Koch brothers called. They said they miss your living over there at Dana Point.
Isn't that nice? Get anything else intelligent? The Koch brothers are libertarians. And by the way, they employ tens of thousands of Americans, maybe hundreds of thousands. But I guess that's wrong. They shouldn't be employing people. They should all be on welfare, going down to the social services office and hanging around. Although the last time I think I walked by a social service office, funny thing is you don't see many Anglos there, at least not like you used to. That's 9:29. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and News Radio. What they really want, the Democrats, of course, there's a joke that makes the rounds of Capitol Hill. Goldman Sachs is called the Bank of the Democrats. And the folks at Goldman Sachs and the high rollers in New York City who actually bankroll Chuck Schumer and actually bankrolled Barack Obama. That's why Timothy Geithner who didn't pay his taxes, we should point out. That's why he was in the Obama White House. That gang has far more money than the Koch brothers ever bring to politics. And this all got set up by Terry McAuliffe, who used to be a relative by marriage, I stress used. And he's now the governor of Virginia because he was bankrolled by those same high rollers as well. They claim to be for the little guy, but trust me, when push comes to shove, those guys at Goldman Sachs get on the phone and say, hey, I need this for my business. And those Democrats fall right into line. Bill Colley with you. Hey, speaking of people falling into line, we're going to talk a little bit about Obama's environmental wackoism in just a moment.